Strap in, because in this lecture we're creating a very slowly rotating capsule and learning a few things about methods along the way. So let's get started. Let's start this whole shebang with a challenge for you to start your project. Start a new 2D project using Unity Hub, and then add a capsule sprite, which is going to be our car. Create a mono behavior script called driver. Add that script to your capsule sprite, and then rename the capsule sprite to give your car a nifty name. Mine's going to be called E.T. McDash Lawsuit. Okay, that's what mine's going to be called. So pause the video, take on that challenge. See you back here shortly. So click on the Projects tab, and in the top right, we'll click on New Project. Choose our editor version, so we're using whatever latest one we want. Click on Universal 2D, that's the type of project we're making, and location's fine, and unclick on Connect to Unity Cloud. We don't need that, and I'm going to call mine Delivery, if I can spell, Delivery Dash. And so when you've got a name for yours, click on the Create Project button. That will fire up Unity, and when Unity has loaded, I will see you back here. I'll pause the video, I'll be back in a moment. Here we are in Unity. The first thing we're going to do over in the hierarchy, we'll right click 2D object sprites, and we'll find ourselves a capsule. This capsule I will rename to be E.T. McDash. Please don't sue me all the places that I ripped off that name. Next, we're going to create ourselves a script. So down in our project area, we'll right click, create a mono behavior script. Driver with a uppercase D for our script. Now, the last step in this process that I gave you as a challenge was to attach the script to your character, to your car. I'm going to click on E.T. McDash, and then I'm going to drag driver over into the component. Now, let's talk about methods. What are methods? Methods, also called functions. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. They're kind of the same thing, a little bit different, but mostly the same, methods and functions. They execute blocks of code that makes our game do things. We can use the methods already available in Unity, and there's a whole bunch of them that do a whole bunch of nifty things, or we can create our own methods if we want specific things for our game to do. And we'll be doing a bunch of both of those throughout this whole process. And there's two main things I want you to understand at the moment when it comes to methods. We create and we call. So when we create a method, we're giving it a name and saying what it should do. For example, drive or turn or explode, and then we say here's the name and here's what you do. And then we also call the method when we are saying do the thing now please. So we might create something that says here's a method that says drive forward, and at some point when the player pushes the forward key on the keyboard, we say okay, call the method that makes you drive forward. So they're the two very early concepts I want you to get into your head: creating and calling methods. So let's open up our script, driver.cs, and we'll have a look and see. There's going to be all these things pop up. Yes, thank you, don't need you, don't worry about that, all good. That thing pops up, X out of that, and we will just close down the Explorer window. A couple of very quick things in here before we get to writing a little bit of code. Up the top, we have our namespaces. Using something. Basically, this is a library of things, classes and methods, etc., that's already within Unity that we can access. And as we dig into other parts of the engine, we need to add more namespaces. So we need to say using this thing or using that thing. And we'll talk about that at the time when we come to it. This is a class that we're in now. This whole information we do within here is a class. Classes are very useful because it allows us to group things together. This is a class that we've named driver, and all the things relevant to driving our car are going to be contained in this particular class. Now, we've got in here two methods already, start and update. They're kind of the kings and queens of the whole enterprise, start and update. They're very important. We use them a lot. They're called callbacks, which basically means within Unity at some point, we don't need to worry about just yet how, at some point it says do start, and at some point it says do update. And when I say do start, when does that happen for us? When we click on the play button and something comes to life, that's when start is activated. So any of our game objects that have a script on it that have information within start, when we click the play button, it will happen. Or if that object comes to life later on, for example, you shoot a bullet and that bullet magically comes into existence, at that point is when its particular start would be triggered. Again, we don't need to worry about all of that information just yet, just giving you a little bit of flavor. Update happens every frame. So you can see our little comment here. Comments are bits of information that aren't code that the engine ignores. And you can see we've got the double forward slash. So I could type in here, / random nonsense. And the engine would say, not a problem, don't care, which is all good. We can delete these. We don't need to have them sticking around. We can delete these if we wanted. I'll leave them there for now. Just not worry about deleting them. We'll just leave them hanging around for a little bit of extra information. Update is happening every frame, or called every frame, which means if you've got a game running at 60 frames per second, update is happening or being called or being executed 60 times every second. And we use update for things that need to listen constantly or happen constantly, and we use start for things that just need to happen once. And so we're going to write a method in start, but first I want to show you just a little bit of a visualization of what it is that we're going to be doing. So if I click on E.T. McDash, I'm going to hit W to move him over to the side here and zoom in a little bit, and then I'll hit E for rotate. Why is it not R? I don't know. And then in here you can see as I rotate right and left, my capsule is moving left and right. And we want to do this as a method. We want to create something that says, do this now, do this at a certain point, rotate please. That'll be a real core part of our game. Basically we're driving, turn left, turn right. First thing for us to think about is, on what axis are we rotating? Well, we've got 3 axes here. We've got the X, the Y, and the Z, or the Z, or the zippity-doo. We've got those 3. And the X-axis is denoted by the red line. This is the up-down. The Y by the green, left, right, and the Z, in this instance, you can see it's a circle around the outside. I'm going to show you a little nifty secret here. If you don't have the little 2D button up in the top, you can turn that on and off by finding View Options, toggling that. This is sort of the master toggle down the bottom. It turns things on and off. So click on the 2D button, and you can see we're no longer in 2D, we're in 3D. If I hold down Alt and left mouse button, we're rotating around my flat capsule. They're saying, what's going on here? It's floating in space. Basically, 2D in Unity is just 3D with a locked camera is the way it works. And I wanted to pop into here. If I hit W, you can see now we've got our widgets. You can see, let me just rotate some around. I've rotated so much, we're not looking at ourselves the right way. Okay, the Y up, the X right, and the Z into the screen. So if I hit E again, you can see I'm rotating around the Z axis. This is the Z axis going into the world just here. So I'll click back on that 2D button that's slashed through at the moment to take us back into 2D mode. And I've got some wobbly rotation here. You can see it's a little bit askew. I'm just going to click on my value and put it back to 0 so it's nice and flat. So now we know we're trying to rotate around Z. We're not trying to rotate around Y. That doesn't do much. We're not trying to rotate around X. That doesn't do much either. The other thing I wanted to visualize for you while we're in here, if you click on the second tool settings down here, you can see my bar that's down below. There's a tool settings. Click on that and it brings up our pivot and our global. This is in terms of how things are moved or rotating, or whether we're doing local or global. If I hit E on the keyboard and rotate a little bit to the right and then hit W, you can see that the Y is still pointing up. That means we're pointing up globally. In the whole world, this is up. However, if I change my setting from global to local, you can see that the arrow is pointing forward of our capsule. This is up for the capsule. So if I hit E and rotate again a little bit further, and then W, you can see now the arrow is down there. This is another core principle of the fact that we're going to be driving our car around. Basically, we're saying go forward, forward, and then when we rotate, back to W, then go forward again. Obviously, it'll be a little bit smoother when we're playing it, but the concept of a local forward is important for us to realize that we're not saying move everything up in the world, we're saying move it forward relative to yourself. So let me just go and reset my values in here, 0, 0, 0, put everything back to 0, just so it's tidy on the screen. Actually, I will pop them over here so it's away from all the junk of icons that we've got. And now we're ready to write a method, which I've been promising you for a while now. So within our driver script, we find our start method. We're going to start off by accessing the transform of our object. Why do I say our object? Well, this script is currently living on our character. You can see down here, we've got the driver script. So when I'm writing things in this script, it's saying, okay, get the thing I belong to. If I'm accessing the transform, then it's accessing the transform of the game object that the script is currently living on. Transform is a component. We can access position and rotation and scale, etc. So we access by, first of all, typing transform, and then we use the dot operator, which is the period on the keyboard or the dot on the keyboard. And that gives us all these various things that we can access. And we're wanting to access a method which is called rotate. With an uppercase R, rotate is a method that's already created by the clever folks at Unity. If you mouse over it, it gives you a bunch of extra information. One thing we need to know about is we put in the parentheses after any method always has parentheses. Sometimes we have extra things we want to do. Sometimes we don't. So rotate is basically rotating, but it doesn't know how to rotate. It's like, can you give me some information, please, Rick, on what sort of rotation you want me to do? And what it's looking for is how much you want me to rotate on the X, on the Y, and on the Z. So what we'll say is 0 on the X, 0 on the Y, so 0 and then comma. You can put a space, you don't have to put a space. You can put a space. So 0, 0, comma, and then we want to rotate on the Z. That's what I was banging on about before, that we've found our Z axis. And I'll just write 45 in here. So that will rotate 45 degrees, hopefully, on the Z axis. And we end all of our statements with a semicolon. And we'll hit save. Always save our stuff. Back over into Unity. It'll think for a moment. Now when I click on play, let's watch what happens if all goes to plan. There we go. Okay, now you saw that my window got really big. Let me just show you what I've done there. It's remembering from when I was playing around on another project. If I make my game window much bigger, you can see there's a setting along here called play maximized. That basically says when I hit the play button, make the game window full screen. For now, I'll turn that off. I'll just do play focused, which basically means don't make it maximized, just focus on the game and not the rest of my Unity editor, but don't go and make it full screen. So let's do that again. We'll click on play, and you can see, boop, it rotates 45 degrees, exactly as we desired. I'm gonna click stop, back over into our script, because what we're gonna do now is put this method into our update. So if you think you know how to do that without watching the screen, grab the method, the transform.rotate method, cut that and place that into our update method, and then save, back over into Unity. Now, what do you think's gonna happen while it's thinking and while these screens are popping over here? What do you think's gonna happen when we click play? Well, let's find out. Get out of the way. It's gonna go bananas. It's rotating 45 per frame. So we've probably got about 500 frames per second at the moment. So it's spinning like there's no tomorrow. So I'll go back over into my script. Instead of 45, let's make it a smaller amount. I'm going to say 0.02. Now, we've got a red squiggly line. What on earth's going on here? There's different types of numbers. One sort of number is a float that has a decimal place. There's other types of numbers that have decimal places. So Unity is basically saying, can you just give me a bit more information on what type of number this is so I get it right? The way we do that is when we're using a float, if we have a decimal place, then we put an F at the end of our number. Technically, we can or should do this for our zeros, but 0 is 0. There's no confusion. It's not confused about what sort of decimal place you are, because there are none in our zeros. So we put an F at the end of our 0.02, save that up, back over into Unity, click on the play button, and it's slowly rotating, so slowly. I probably could have done 0.2, couldn't I, instead of 0.02, but we've got a slow rotation. So we've had a chance to see a very big number going quickly and a very small number going very slowly. So that's all I wanted to cover in this lecture. We've had a quick look at start and update to see the difference between those two. We've created ourselves a first method, and we've got a really slow moving vehicle on our screen. So I'll see you in the next lecture.